What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Just taking my time to share tonight's live encounter. So, if you guys are watching, go ahead, like this, share this, tag a friend. I'm your boy, Pastor Ramon, aka Pastor Ray, and I'm so excited to be back with you all. I was gone last week. I stepped off for a minute, but I'm back again. In the place to be. Why don't you go ahead and let us know that you are with us this evening by commenting. I see that Alex is on. What's up, Alex? I see that my grandmother is watching. So for all the people that have tagged in, glad to see you here. You know, tonight is a great night. It's a big night for myself. I've got an announcement. I've been teasing you guys all week long, and tonight is finally the night that our big announcement is here. So listen, make sure you stay tuned. I'm going to share that just a little later on in the live. I know a lot of you all have messaged me thinking that I was going to possibly cut my hair. A lot of people said I was going to have a rap album. Uh, Somebody even said I might be turning into a stripper. I don't know where that came from. But I am so excited to share with you guys how God is moving in my life and what a new journey might look like for me. So stay tuned for that comment. Listen, again, if you're watching, let us know that you're on. Comment, let us know that you're here. Take this and share it with all that you can. Share it on your page. I would love for you to share it on your page. Make sure you share it to your social network groups. If you're on YouTube watching this, go ahead and let us know that you're watching us on YouTube. We love to know that you're watching on YouTube and Facebook. Wherever you're watching from, comment, let us know that you're here, and then be a part of the conversation. We got a great conversation for you tonight. But listen, what is the will? The Well is a creative arts and conscious awareness faith community. In other words, we could be anywhere that we want to be because God is everywhere that God wants to be. And we believe in really supporting by our creative arts and making sure that we're aware consciously of all that God has going on. We just want to be in alignment with God. And what is our motto? I'm glad you asked. Our motto here at the Well is encounter the well, become the well, emerge and share the well. And synonymous with encounter love, become love, emerge and share love. Encounter Jesus, become more like Jesus, emerge and share Jesus. Gina, good to see you. Mama Helen Ellis, good to see you on. All the folks that are tuning in. Again, tonight is a special night. We're dealing with our series, Wade in the Sugar, Honey, Ice, T. You take the first couple letters of that and you know what we mean. But waiting in your stuff. Last week we had a guest panel, our home panel rather, that talked about figuring out, recognizing your sugar honey iced tea. And tonight we're talking about coping with your sugar honey iced tea. And we just have a few of us on tonight, but we're going to dig deep into this because over this whole month, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, before we move in, hey mom, before we move into our encounter with our panelists for this evening, I want to remind you that everything we do here at The Well should lead you down the path. And that path should lead you down the path of our 5 P's. What are those 5 P's? There they go. Passion, purpose, promise, peace, and power. Passion, purpose, promise, peace, and power. Everything we should do should lead you down. I hope you are finding your passion, your purpose, your promise, your peace, and or your power as you explore and journey with us. So again, welcome to the Well Live Encounter. I'm your boy Pastor Ramon, aka Pastor Ramon, aka Pastor Ray, and we're gonna go ahead and thank the Amplify Network and ask super producer Jackie to go ahead and bring our panelists in for this evening. Pastor J, Minister Morrow, what's up, fellas?
What's going on?
Yo. Good people.
Listen, glad to see you guys. Hey, Dakota, I see you on YouTube over there, Dakota, and all the other people who are on YouTube. I know YouTube folks don't always speak as much, but we got about 5-6 people that are on over there as well. So I just want to say good evening to all of those folks. Pastor Morrow, thank you so much for holding it down last week, man. You did an amazing job.
Appreciate you, sir. Listen, always some large shoes to fill when you're not here.
Oh man, I appreciate it. But you were setting pretty large shoes yourself, man, and I appreciate you. Pastor Jason joining us all the way from Delaware in the house. What's up, Pastor J?
What's good? What's good? I am chilling. I was off today, so I should feel refreshed, but I found a way to still be too busy.
Listen, that's the story of life right there, man. Again, if you are watching, go ahead and tag a friend. Make sure you're watching. I do have a special announcement, man. I'm so stoked about this announcement that I have for you guys. We're going to do it just a little bit later. But I promise you, it is definitely an announcement that I am honored and privileged to share with you guys. Move back because I think I look bigger than everybody. All right. Cool. So listen, we're talking, Pastor Minister Morrow, you talked a lot last week about recognizing your sugar honey iced tea. And by that, we're just talking about mental health, recognizing mental health. I want to talk tonight, we're going to talk tonight about coping with your sugar honey iced tea. I want to start off with a real question. If you're watching and if you're on, Alex, I know you're on, and all the other folks that are on, listen, I'd love for you guys to follow this question. But here's the question. I see you, Mildred. I see you, Halea, all on YouTube. Thanks for saying. Listen, I want to start with this question. And you on YouTube and Facebook, do you look like what you've been through? I just want to know, do you look like what you've been through?
Ooh, that's churchy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, huh?
Absolutely not.
Harrison shaking his head, pretty much no too. Alex said no. Alex said no. Halea said no. I see a whole bunch of no's coming up. I see a whole bunch of no's. Listen, so can we, this ain't a churchy type of thing, but Harrison, you said it right? Like, can we just give God praise for the fact that we don't look like what we've been through?
Listen, hey, he is worthy.
Okay.
But with that being said, Pastor Jay, Harrison, you guys are our focus tonight, myself as well. But even if you're watching again, we want you to interact with us. My question is, what are some of the issues you've been through that have pushed you to cope with your own mental health? Right? You said you don't look like what you've been through, but you both said it like you've been through something. So I'm just curious, what are some of those things that you've been through that you could look like, but you don't look like?
I'll let Minister Morrow go first on this one.
Man, I think we've talked about this before, definitely on the Well. And good evening, everybody. Again, man, it is always an honor and a pleasure to serve you, Williams. Listen, friends and family, it's just a blessing to be here. But definitely, listen, y'all know my story. 2019 January, school, Howard University, up here doing great things. Okay, I'm the director of undergraduate elections. I'm music director for I think two churches at the time. Had another campus job. I mean, things were going well. And the Army was like, "Well, you're not graduating on time, so you got to go." So at the same time that I'm leaving the Army, I'm also leaving school with debt for the first time in 4 years, right? And then also leaving a campus job. And at that point, man, it felt like I was at one of the lowest points in my life, and entered into somewhat of a depression, and had never experienced such. Had never, didn't even know what that meant for real. I had to go do some research and ask some questions for the first time. Like I didn't know nothing. You think you know everything. And you find out that you get into some of these tough situations, and we preach and teach it, but I think this was a season that God said you got to live it. Like I need you to. You're doing good. You're talking good. You're talking good. You're in my notes. You got a good thing going. But I need you to be reassured when people say, who is this God you believe in? You can't say the Bible is the Bible because the Bible tells me so. I need you to have an assured foundation of who I am, based off of your experience. So I think this was a season of feeling. I think this was a season of walking, this talk. So that made me address some of the things that I had been coping with and did not even know. But it took me almost 3, 4, 5 months post January of 19 to really like sit down and say, there's a problem here. I am not this tired all the time for no reason. I am not this sleepy. I never take naps. I am not napping in the middle of the day for nothing. I am not breaking my regular routine for nothing. There were just so many signs that something was wrong, but I was not comfortable. I was willing to ask for help, was not comfortable with being able to do it. I didn't feel like I could. Because in my context, I wasn't, therapy and all that. We weren't really taught much of that. You're crazy in the Black community if you're going to talk to a therapist. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's something that, man, I would love to see debunked, because I went to therapy for a year and it changed my literal life. So that was one of the major situations that helped me kind of confront that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the issues. So let's see. March 20.
Jason, before you answer, I just want to read this. I'm so glad that Brother Alex is one of our. Listen, I'm all churchy tonight. That Alex is on. He says, "I remember being homeless, no place to go, but I learned to apply myself and worked on my credit, prayed, and believed God. I was then shown how lazy I was, and then I had to work a little harder to get what I wanted." Alex, thank you so much for sharing that, man. Exactly. Just some of those things we've been through, and it's crazy. Like you talk about being homeless. Wow, man. Kudos to you for coming out of that. Yeah. Sorry, Pastor Jay.
No, that was good. So March 24th, 2021. My aunt, who was more like a second mother, a sister, a friend, passed away suddenly. She had COVID. She was diagnosed with COVID on Thursday, and before day Wednesday morning, she was up out of here. I had talked to her that Monday evening, and she was like, "I'm starting to feel better." She was making plans for later on in that month, and Wednesday morning, I get a call from my other aunt screaming in the phone, "Alice is gone. Alice is gone. Alice is dead." And I was stuck. I was confused. I was angry. I was a whole lot of emotions all in one. I've lost people. I've lost a best friend. I've lost grandparents. My grandmother died a year before her. But this one hit different. This was the closest person to me that I had ever lost. And I typically deal with loss very well. But this time I knew that it felt different. Because I've never dealt with loss and been angry. And I was short with people. I could not find joy. And joy has never been an issue for me. It's never been hard for me. I'm up in the morning and people are like, why are you so cheerful? Why do you have so much energy? That's just me. And so when I had to struggle to find joy, I knew something wasn't right. But then a month and a half later, out of the blue, I find myself going through a separation. And when I say out of the blue, I mean didn't see it coming at all. Married almost 7 years, and boom, in the course of 2 days, I'm in the house by myself, going through a separation, and here I am a year later, about to go through divorce. And so all of that within a month and a half time span was a lot. And I've been through a whole lot in life, but I knew that it felt different. And I was already going to be going to therapy for the loss of my aunt. But before I could even get the first one scheduled, a whole nother part of my world fell apart. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we need to speed this up. And then I'm a hotel general manager of two small hotels. The pandemic did not help our industry, very short staff. So, on top of everything I'm dealing with and trying to work through, I'm working 16, 17-hour days, 7 days a week. So, I'm like, when do I have time to even deal with the stuff that I know that I need to deal with? I wasn't trying to avoid it, but I could not afford. I felt like I was breaking down. I felt stuck, but I knew I could not afford to break down. Like literally, I could not afford because now it's one income. I can't
Right.
afford to have a breakdown and not be able to go to work. But those were the issues that led me to having to deal with my mental health issues. I knew I was depressed. I was snapping at people. I was saying stuff that I just normally wouldn't say, and I didn't care. My mouth was very reckless the entire year. Um, I had, I won't share it here, but Ramon knows what my theme was for the entire year. Um, and that's how I felt about everything and everybody. And I knew being in that place, I needed to go and start dealing with some stuff internally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Jay can attest. I mean, you're right. Like I walked through that with you. I watched you walk through it. I always tell Jay, man, like I just think you're such a strong individual. You're such a a small guy who has such enormous strength. But to watch you, right, just lose people back to back to back, was so hard to watch one of my best and closest friends, um, go through. And so, yeah, that, hmm
And I'll add to that. So this is the funny part. I never remember all the other stuff because those two just kind of made me numb. So in the span of 9 months, I lost four relatives. So I lost my aunt, I lost my marriage, but then I lost two cousins about 3 months apart, and then a week later I lost a great aunt. And so in the span of 9 months, before we even like from March to January, it was a whole lot of loss. But I was just numb by the time I got to the other three deaths.
yeah, yeah. And so I'm curious, and I'll share, right, like, and I have a question for you both, but like, even for myself, I think, right, like, losing my brother, I think I've talked about it before, right? Back in 2016 was tough for me. But let's start even here, man. We don't talk about this enough in the black community, but some of us experience the trauma of not having our fathers in our lives, right? From an early age. And I don't think that LeVar would mind me sharing, but Jason and I's friend, Minister LeVar, I mean, he talked about, right, like growing up and having his father there, um, but not there. You know what I'm saying? So for him, it was like his father wasn't absent physically, but was absent emotionally in any other way that counted. I talk about the fact that, right, like my father was sort of in and out. My father was a great personality, just not responsible enough. And I think some of the times we can talk about, again, we talk about the loss, and that is traumatic. We talk about, right, having to leave school or not having enough money and all this stuff, and it's traumatic. But in our society, we don't talk even enough about the fact that not having a dad around already from the jump for a lot of us sets us up to a place where our mental health is affected, right? I think about my niece, for example, and I'll use her because my brother, right, passed away. Well, that left my niece without a father. And so I remember taking her around my son and his kids at one point, and I remember her sort of having a moment because she was watching my granddaughter have a time with her father, but she knew her father was not going to be around. And so, like, even there's a traumatic experience that a lot of us in the African American community don't even talk about or think about. Harrison, to your point, is being something that affects our mental health, right? So from the jump, we're born into some places where we don't even talk about or recognize the issues we have with our mental health, right? And that sets us up right there for whatever that looks like. Um, I'm just curious as to all that we've shared. What did that? So then we're talking about coping. And so many people, if you're watching, one of the biggest reasons we're jumping into this month is because so many people have or deal with mental health things or issues. One, you don't know it, right? I think Harrison, y'all talked about it last week. Do you even know that you're dealing with mental health issues? And then number two, once you recognize it or start to recognize it, can you deal with it? Like how do you deal with it? And so Harrison, Jason, my question is, and even if you're watching, like all those people who are interacting with Alex, Mama Helen, all those folks, how do you walk through? How did you personally? Don't not. This is not just your recommendation for everybody else. How did you walk through your mental health journey?
So I first had to be honest with me and where I was and what I was feeling. And the funny thing is, so to your point, when I first started going to therapy, we dealt with the issue of loss and grief and how I was grieving two different situations at the same time. But one thing I had to recognize as an aha moment, I want to say in session one, was I had abandonment issues that had nothing to do with the two current situations that I was dealing with. I had abandonment issues because my father, I knew who he was, but I was like a secret to that entire side of my family. And so knowing who your father is, but not really being able to be accepted or introduced. I didn't meet my brother on that side until I was 19 years old, and he didn't know I existed. And so, abandonment issues from birth is what I was walking around with and didn't realize it until that moment. Because I was like, why do I feel so abandoned? Like, she passed away. She didn't leave me. She didn't have a choice. She didn't have an option. But part of my anger was, you left. You should have went to the hospital. All these things I was putting on her that had nothing to do with her. So I had to be honest with myself that you feel abandoned, but it has to be deeper than her passing away. I feel abandoned. It has to be deeper than a separation. And so I had to be willing, on top of the pain that I was dealing with, to dig up more pain so that I can get to the root of what is this? And I don't want to be in this cycle ever again. So I had to be honest about my pain and then be willing to walk through even more pain just so I could get to healing and whole. So
Now, that's deep. That's deep because it touches on, and I again, right? Like it's for the people who like are watching. And Alex, you're so right, right? Like I need to get to the root. That is, I think, pause, right? Like to me, that is the reason why so many people are going through life with this pain and with hurt. I was just talking to somebody whose family member is going through something, and we had this long conversation about that, right? Like, what's the root, right? Is it like even I think Pastor Tate talked last week about seasonal depression and how he goes through. Again, what's the root of what you're going through? And we don't discover that because we don't even realize or recognize we're carrying this hurt or anger from way back then. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Harrison, I'm. What do you think, brother? What about you?
Short answer, I didn't. I did not walk through that. I made it out. And right, that sounds real churchy and cute, but that is not like this super great that it came out. But it was not something I dealt with. I did not handle that. I did not handle it well either. I went into after January, probably about May. At the time, I was living with my ex fiance, and I had to lean on her. And when I say lean, I mean I had to lean on her because publicly, right, I'm still having to do. Yeah, I'm not in school no more, but there's still my entire circle, at least a good portion is. Yeah, I'm not in that job no more, but I also trained the person who is and was still helping out, right? So I was out of that job, but I still had other jobs I'm doing. So I'm working part time security. So I'm now picking up hours overnight, working in daytime. So now my entire life has shifted quite a bit, right? Considering I moved here 8 years ago with no family, no friends, was me and Jesus alone, you know. And and for a good portion of that reason that I moved up here to then be stripped away, that felt to me almost like an identity crisis. Looking back, that was rough. Like, why am I here? What is this purpose? Because again, I'm still having to perform, and I think Pastor Jason, you said it, man. Life did not stop lifing when I was going through. Life is gonna keep lifing. And even in the middle of that, I want to encourage somebody that life is going to keep lifing, but you are going to keep going. And like that is the grace I think that God has given us. He's given us strength enough. You may not be happy every day, but at least you're gonna make it through. So without prolonging, fast forward, right? I didn't even know, and I think somebody said it in the comments. I feel like I want to read this. Gina Bavina, she said, "Thank God that we go through things. We don't stay there. God provides the tools and resources for us to actually deal with our feelings." And at that time, that was my first year of ever attending therapy. I had started at the beginning of that fall semester. I was out again January of that next semester, and I continued therapy through that second semester. And when I tell you, I leaned on my ex, and then I leaned on my therapy group and my therapist. So God had already provided an answer before a problem rose. Fast forward a couple years later to 2021, just last year, where I lose 10 people in the span of about 50 to 60 days, and not all to just COVID, to multiple things. To this last month, losing a second uncle out of 10 kids and on my mother's side of the family. Grief now, has presented itself. So now I'm reconfronted with this thing that wasn't quite so handled last time. And I believe I'm at the point now where it's like, God's like, okay, what you gonna do?
Yeah, yeah,
What you gonna do? When you are met with life's lifing, what are you gonna do? And I made a conscious decision, man, about a week and a half ago, that I was not gonna let this thing take me to where it took me last time. That I was going to go find another therapist, that I was going to go figure something out. So I think sometimes having a space to do this, having a space to open up a little bit, this space like the well, it matters. It
yeah,
matters.
yeah. Brennan B, good to see you, bro. Good to see you, man. Glad to have you on.
Brennan B.
Um, I again, if you're watching, thanks for joining us, everyone. We're talking about mental health tonight. We're talking about coping with your sugar, honey, iced tea. Y'all know what that is. Coping with your stuff, coping with your mental health. Um, and if you're here, make sure I see Patrina. So thank you for saying that you're here. Listen, everybody that's on, make sure you comment so that we know you're on. Anadolia, I see that you're on. Um, you know, it's crazy because I got this question about denial that I want to jump into, but I kind of want to wrestle and stay right here for a quick second because you guys are bringing up a point that's kind of so dope, right? It's not even necessarily sometimes are you denying what your mental health things are, but sometimes you don't even recognize, right? You don't, again, last week was recognizing, and sometimes you don't even realize it to cope with it. You know what I'm saying? And I remember I went through anxiety attacks when I was younger, man. I was going through anxiety attacks pretty bad, um, right during high school, like right after high school, through my first couple of college years, and that was the first time I had to go see a therapist. And again, Jason, Alex, you guys talked about finding the root of the problem. The root for me was my uncle had died of a heart attack when I was 13, and it was the first real life experience of a close death that I had ever gone through. Right after that, right, like a year, a couple, well, yeah, not too far after that, well, right after high school, one of my closest friends, she was younger than me. I was like 21 or 20. She was 14. She had a heart transplant, but then she died of a heart attack, and that was pretty dramatic for me as well. And so, and I see Gary, you're saying something right now. Mental health has a way of hiding itself in your subconscious until something triggers it. My panic attacks, my anxiety attacks were based on the fact that I thought I was having a heart attack. So I would have all the symptoms. I used to work at Red Lobster. Never forget carrying a tray of food one day, and I was like, I got all the cold sweats, the hot sweats. I started breathing heavily. I felt chest pain, and I thought I was having a heart attack. Right? It wasn't until I kind of talked that through that I understood, dang, the root of my issue, right, has been the fact that the dramatic experience I've had in my life with heart attacks of those who were close enough to surround me. So again, folks out there who are trying to figure out what you're going through, I think it's just so important to sort of mention you have to figure out what are those things in your life that have triggered, what are those things, the dramatic experiences in your life that you've dealt with, and kind of go, dang, maybe those things are affecting me in a way I didn't even recognize. And again, it could be not having your dad around, not having your mom around, experiencing death at a young age. Maybe you were touched the wrong way at a young age. All of that stuff, are triggers and things that you hold on to sometimes. Is that making sense, guys?
Absolutely.
Um, I do want to ask though. I mean, I heard folks kind of talk last week about the denial process, um, and so just so everybody can hear this, because I want people to really, really, really take heed if they feel like they are going through some sort of mental health issue. Were there moments that you yourselves denied to your own self what you were going through?
I don't know if I denied it. I hid it. I was very clear about what I was going through, but I was also very clear, like Harrison said, life is going to keep on lifing. I still had a whole congregation that was dependent on me. I still had to hear from God, even though I really want to be talking to God in those moments. But I still had to teach Bible study. Because at this point, also, my entire ministerial staff is gone or passed away. And so it literally was just me. So I didn't necessarily deny it, but I masked it because I didn't want to bleed on people. I didn't want everybody to know what I was going through. I had select people. I created a tribe that I could say what I needed to say. I could not say if I didn't want to say nothing. I could just cry. I could scream. I could cuss. Whatever I needed to do, I created that tribe. Um, so I acknowledged it, but publicly, I masked it. Um, I couldn't be at work falling apart. I'm not just, a worker. Like I have two teams of people that I manage and I have guests to interact with. I just can't be, they say you got to be strong. We say I got to be strong for my family and all of that. I didn't have to be strong for my family. I just had to show up in the world because stuff, life was going to keep life. And so I had to show up in the world. So for me, it wasn't denial, but I felt like I had to mask what I was going through because I couldn't show up in the world as unwanted and abandoned and lost and stuck and lonely and angry and all these things. I couldn't show up like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think, man, as a person of faith, right? As a person who grew up heavy in the church. As a matter of fact, too, man, I want to acknowledge. I've encountered three. You see what I did there? Encounter. I've encountered three female bishops over my 26 years of living, and two of them are watching tonight. Bishop Patrina Stedman, Bishop Althea Green, my cousin back in Memphis. Appreciate you, ladies. Love you all so much. Thank you for tuning. Um, I want to read something that Reverend Mother Dent said last week. She said, from mental health, first aid, there is a difference between mental illness and mental wellness. Illness is diagnosed. Wellness expresses the fact that as humans, we all experience emotional distress. Even Jesus experienced emotional distress. It makes a difference in how you approach dealing with what's going on. I think that spoke to so much, right? Because self-care has become like this super, super popular thing, right? And there's always been a thing, but it's become so popular for people to talk about, but it's not something I think we practice wholly. I think it's something that looks nice when we go to the spa, you know, you go get your French tips and then, you know, you're sipping mimosas, you know, however y'all go to the nail shop. I don't know. I've heard a lot. But when you go to do whatever you do, everybody says, I'm going to get pampered. That's self-care. I mean, in a way. But sometimes self-care is, I think what you're talking about, denial, is fighting, you know, again, Harrison's definition is fighting through self to get to a deeper thing. I think denying you're not trying to experience the change that's coming with whatever truth you're about to acknowledge. So I think the first thing your flesh is going to do is, no, not me. No, not me. Hey, I think you got a problem. No, not me. I think you're sad. Nah, not me. And I think it looks different. You know, I think sometimes it maybe not always even as direct. I think sometimes it's, again, back to that same question. Something's going on here. Like maybe I should investigate. I think denial is what stops us from investigating.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. I'm listening to you, and I'm gonna jump back, Jason, to you in just a second about something you said. But man, Prophet Curtis, you touched on a whole bunch here. I wish I could read all of this, but one of the things I wanna jump to, you said, and so in the context of the Black church, when it comes to mental health issues in therapy could perhaps be a difficult thing to talk about if there isn't a congregational ministry for pastoral care. And moreover, on a theological level, I think mental health issues should be dealt with spiritually in terms of being able to help someone get better in terms of wholeness and one's self being. And there's so much more that you said there. I need a whole encounter to unpack everything you said there. But Jason, you're a pastor in a Black church, and I want to talk about the pressures of being of a sound mind in a leadership servant leadership position in a Black church. Go.
So listen, when I was not in a sound mind, I was clear. So I believe in being open. I believe in being transparent. And so everybody in my congregation, number one, knew that I was seeing a therapist. When I had moments with my mouth, listen, they knew my mouth was reckless because I told them. I was like, listen, this is how my issues are showing up and this is how they're coming out. They never, well, my mother may have experienced it, but they never saw it or witnessed it, but they were very aware that it was there because, number one, I know I'm not the only one dealing with it and going through it. And I know that it has been an issue in the Black church just historically. And so, listen, if I'm your servant leader, I want you to know that I don't have it all together. I'm struggling with some stuff emotionally and mentally, just like some of them are and were. And so let me be the example. If I have to go through this, then at least let me be the example to show you, listen, we've been preaching and we've been teaching what it means to be free and what it means to be delivered and healed and whole. And sometimes you need to go sit and talk to somebody who has gone to school. Listen, anointing is one thing, but you can mix that anointing, because I promise you that my therapist is anointed and skilled. And those two together have changed my entire life. And so, listen, she's anointed and skilled. She got the anointing and then she got the degree. And so she has made a big impact. And so I think just me being the example and being willing to be open and honest and be the example to let them know, listen, it's okay. It does not make you a bad Christian. It does not say that you're unsaved because you're going through something emotionally and mentally does not mean you living in sin and all these things that we put on Christians when, you know, they need to go talk to somebody or they need a pill. So that's how I have shown up. That's how it has shown up in my ministry. Just be open and honest about it. And listen, if I could write a prescription for everybody in my congregation to go see a therapist, I would. And as a leader and as a pastor, I think every pastor should consistently, even if you don't feel like you got nothing going on, we carry everybody else's weight too. Those we serve, we carry their weight. If we don't, we can try to act like we don't, but we do. And so, even just for that, every leader in a ministry needs to have a therapist or a counselor or somebody that they go talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I listen. I think, but that right there is the reason why I think so many of us are. Can I say this? Suffering in silence, right? Like we have got to put an end to suffering in silence, right? Because and I want to say this, right? Harrison and I have formed this amazing bond over the last year and some change. Actually, a couple years now. Jason and I have had a bond for a long, long time. Listen, I don't care who you are. If you're watching, and let me say this too. I don't care if you're young, middle age, if you're a senior. You gotta have a group of people that you can talk to about stuff and know that it's okay to talk about it. And I mean that if your friends, if you are not able and you don't feel comfortable about talking to your group of people about the things you're going through, then you don't need those people as your best or close friends. Period. Period. Like there are no ifs, there are no ands, there are no buts. And I want to help somebody through this today. Because so many of us are suffering in silence because we're too ashamed to tell it. And it's not sometimes that we're just ashamed because we're ashamed. We're ashamed because of judgment or because people are going to talk about us or we're afraid of what people are going to say. But listen, I know that if I have something wrong with me, I can go to Pastor Jason Mathis, and tell him exactly what's going on. And I know he's going to say, no judgment. He don't even have to say it because I know he's not going to judge me. I know that I can talk to Minister Morrow about Harrison about what's going on in my life. And I totally to this day feel like there's no judgment. Now, he might make a joke about it, but there's no judgment, and we're going to walk through it because I'm going to make a joke with him about his too, depending on the matter. But those are your real friends. Those are your family. Those are the folks that really should be in your corner. Stop suffering in silence. I cannot put more emphasis on it. Stop it. You are doing more harm to yourself by not opening up. I think Alex said it earlier, or somebody said it earlier. The more you pour into that water balloon, right, it's eventually going to explode. And when it explodes, we talk about Heath Ledger, right? Killed himself. We talk about the Judd sister who just killed herself, right? We talk about so many people who are killing themselves. And let me say this too. It doesn't mean that when that balloon blows up, it doesn't mean that you are going to take the gun and kill yourself. Listen, we got people that are on drugs, and I can attest to it. I know people right now on drugs that are killing themselves internally. We had Angela on last month who talked about rising above addiction. I know people who are addicted, and your addictions are killing you because your addictions are caused by, somebody said earlier, the trauma that you faced in your life. So because my dad wasn't around, I got abandonment issues. I turned to alcohol because I've never talked about it. I've never felt comfortable expressing it. Men, do a better job. Like, come on, we got to do better. You know, I'm a woman, and I feel inferior, or I feel some sort of way because my body is not shaped the way that the world says that it should be shaped. Right, and so you continuously turn to other men, and you're just having sex over and over and over and over again because you're insecure with who you are. That's how we kill ourselves. It's not always taking the gun or taking the pills and popping the pills back and immediately killing ourselves, right? We're killing ourselves through other things. And last but not least, we are spiritually killing ourselves. We will not yoke ourselves or bind ourselves or align ourselves with other people who are going to encourage us, who are going to read the word to us because we've been hurt by church or whatever. We don't find people. Listen, just because the church did it doesn't mean God did it. Just because the church hurt you does not mean God hurt you. And we got to stop blaming the church for God. And we got to stop doing that, right? Because God is not, just because the member over here says something to you, that don't mean God is doing something to you. That just means that member or that person did something to you. All right, let me get off my soapbox. I just wanted, that was a moment. I just make sure we got to say those things, man, because we will kill ourselves not coping with our stuff, and we will refuse to deal with it because we're ashamed, embarrassed, insecure. You got to find the right people. And don't run away from God or the church just because of one or two people or group of people. Go find you the right people to get around and get along with. Harrison, I want to ask you, is that part of your coping? Like the stuff you've gone through, bro. Like, did you find the right people? Does that mean or does that matter to you finding the right people?
Man, I've always said, so you know, people tell you, and there's that quote that if you have or find one or two good friends in life, like you're blessed. And I have been blessed with, I mean, multiple sides of family, multiple sides of friendships, multiple circles. I mean, God has, and that's not a flex. That is literally to point to the fact that God has positioned me to be in a place of connectivity and to be in a network that is just, I mean, the love is abundant, which speaks to, you know, part of my denial as it relates to mental health is that all these amazing resources and avenues to express yourself, brother. What is going on here? You can't be hurting that bad. It ain't that much hurt in the world. But at the end of the day, like maybe it is, you know. So that to say, man, I think sometimes we use God as a coping mechanism. I think sometimes we use ministry and our different professions as a coping mechanism. I think sometimes we sacrifice our family and some of our responsibilities on the altar of denial, on the altar of whatever is happening, and blame it on somebody else when it's sacrificed. It's like, oh no, you laid that thing down there and you prepared it just like the. You may not have been the one
Yeah,
to light the fire, but at the end of the day, like this is a thing that needs to be dealt with. It's almost like a tune-up, right? You got to change your spark plugs, and spark plugs aren't changed like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're separated even on one side, out on the left side. They don't go 1 through 8. You change them out of order because if you were to change them 1 through 8, 1 through 6, however many it is, it would put too much pressure on the head, and it would blow the head. Similar with us, you put too much pressure on your head without going through life in the right process, in the way that God has prescribed the plan for you to go. You're gonna put too much pressure on your head, and eventually, you know what's gonna happen. You don't change them spark plugs because the further you get closer to that number 8, it's hard to change them. And the most janky, shisty mechanics, as my granddaddy would call them, they ain't gonna change them last 2 or 3 spark plugs. They gonna change the easy ones, and you'll know later down the line that something is going on here. But you won't be able to diagnose it until you go deeper into the problem. So, in order to get a perfectly tuned up vehicle, you got to change all the spark plugs. You got to change them out of order. It's gonna be a little confusion. It's gonna be a little cloudy, but it's gonna make everything better once you get through the process. So
yeah,
I feel like we got to get past the point that, you know, we're going to change so much that we're not going to be us if I deal with this. I'm not going to be Harrison if I have to accept this. Like they're going to call me crazy. My first thought, they're going to call me crazy. No, I'm not doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, I just want to say real quick. Go ahead, Jason. But I want to say I think Alex kind of said that earlier. I can't find it, but I think Alex had said something about he was afraid of yes, because I was afraid of the changes it was going to bring because I was settled with the issue. So to your point, Harrison, right? He kind of said that earlier. So yeah, you're right on. Go ahead, Jason. I want to step on your toes.
So I'm gonna come back to the changes part. Um, but so Harrison, you said something so key. You said that a lot of times, especially those who grew up in church, and church is what we know, we use God and we use ministry as a coping mechanism. But do we really? So, cope, the definition of cope is deal effectively with something difficult. I I would say a lot of us go through the motions because that's what we know. So we think that we're coping, but we're just going through the motions because we're gonna go up to the altar for prayer. We're gonna show up. We're gonna dance. We're gonna shout. We're gonna fall out. Whatever our expression is, we know to do that. But we're not coping. We just going through the
Mm-hmm.
motions because this is I'm supposed to run around 7 times and twirl and flip 3 times, and it's gonna be better. And it's not. Listen, I Pentecostal, all that. I get it. I've been there. Um, but we're not really coping. We are just going through the motions of what we've been taught. But you also said something. It's not until you go deeper. Because all this, listen, I am a praiser. Ramon will tell you I will dance. I'll be the first one up. Um, but in the past year, I didn't do a whole lot of dancing. because I had to go deeper. Um, like we have still been virtual for our services, our Bible studies. I promise you, I did a whole series after I said, because something happened when my marriage was falling apart, and it was based off of something that was said in Bible study. And so I said to God, well, listen, if what you give me to say is going to ruin my life like this, then I ain't saying nothing else. Um, and then he gave me this whole Bible study series. We did the fruit of the spirit, and I understood love like never before. I understood peace and joy, and every last fruit I understood more, because as I was going deeper in therapy, I was going deeper in the words. I was no longer just going through the motions, but I had to experience it so that I could develop it, and then I could live. Um, and in all of that, I was terrified, because for 10 years, well, for all of my life, I had my aunt. For 10 years, I had my spouse. And what is life going to look like now? So I was terrified. But a year later, the change was good. And so sometimes you got to do it afraid. You got to be terrified and do it anyway, um, because we're just hurting ourselves if we prolong it. We know that there's an issue. So beyond what we think other people are going to think, be okay with the change. I promise you, God's not going to allow anything to be stripped from you. Come on, Job. He's not going to allow you to lose anything and not restore it back better than when you lost it. And so I know it's terrible, because the unknown is always a terrifying place to be, but there's always better and greater on the other side. And I am now living proof of that. Like a laundry list of things that have just blown my mind, because I said, listen, and my prayer was, God, whatever it is you have for me on the other side of this, I'm open to it. And that was a terrifying thing to say, but now it's a great place to be. But it was because I
If
dealt
I,
with
if I can,
the
if I can say something real quick, because I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to say what's up, brother, to Daniel, Danny, who's on, to Marcus, who just joined us, all the folks that I see join us. Stay tuned. I have an announcement at the end of this. We're definitely talking about mental health, mental health, and we're just really in good. So go ahead, Pastor Harrison. Just want to.
Hey, listen, exciting news. I'm ready. Listen, we got to do that. We're gonna celebrate. But I wanted to say, because in and I know, oh God, conviction. I know how understanding that perspective and context matters. Sometimes hearing what you just said, Pastor Jason, somebody who's in that hurt space, or maybe in a space of denial, or maybe they're dealing with, but whatever stage they're in, regardless, right? They could have heard what you just said and said, "Oh, you telling us not to pray? You telling us not to praise and not to worship?" No, that is not what he sees. So I need to emphasize that
yes,
praise and worship are always in order. And let me say, I
always.
think that there are sometimes we see that biblically. There are sometimes that God won't do certain things and He won't lift certain burdens until that dance, and whatever He told you to do, however He told you to move, until that thing happens. Again, sometimes God won't lift the thing, but that to say, what we are saying is that it's more than just a dance. Your dance should not justify you not going into self, deeper into God, to figure out what is going on here. Because at the end of you dancing, that thing gonna be right there in your face. Because when you get back in your car after you done left the saints and y'all done had a shouting good time, amen, you done got hands laid on, they prayed, that's great. But the Bible talks about faith and work. That was your faith. Now it's time for your work. And when I put my work behind my faith and put my faith in front of my work, I feel like that's Bible. You're going to make it through. But again, it's a balance between those. Like, you got to understand, worship, praise, always in order, but work.
Yep.
And I appreciate you guys. Danny, I know you just got on, man. I would love to hear you kind of chip in if you can and just type with us, brother. But listen, I want to highlight something that Gina said, that's in here as well, that I just want to highlight. We're talking about the state of mental health. Again, if you're joining us, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about coping with mental health. And Gina said something that I think needs to be highlighted. We try our best every week to have a diverse panel on. When we do reach out to folks, sometimes folks can't make it on and whatnot, but we do try to have throughout the month just different people on. Tonight we just happen to have three males, and so you're getting a three male perspective. I saw somebody, I think it was Halea, said that earlier. But Gina says women need to also make it okay for a man to express his true emotions. Expressing feelings doesn't make a man soft. It makes him real. But that's another conversation. Men start off as little boys who are told to stop crying and things like that. So they grow up to be men who don't know how to deal with and express their feelings. That then leads to so many other things in life. She said, sorry, that was a lot. I just want to listen. And at some point, y'all, I promise you, down the line, we're going to have this conversation about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. We already have that in the works. So I'm not about to go into that too deep. But I do want to stop here and just say, listen, that right there also is a place where mental health, people don't understand, you are attributing to mental health. I've heard too many men, right, who are like, well, my son, he don't need to cry, right? He shouldn't cry, right? He needs to toughen up, right? You need to be a soldier. Men don't cry. And I'm going to say this, right? Y'all know, we keep it real. That is 100% bull sugar honey iced tea. That's what we talking about tonight, sugar honey iced tea. That is bull sugar honey iced tea, bro. Like, you cannot be a real man and not know how to express your feelings. Expressing your feelings is a part of being a human being. And it's important to be able to do that. Again, we are suffering with mental health because we are hindering ourselves from expressing what's happening on the inside. And if you're not doing that, then you're holding stuff in that is eventually going to tear you down. People don't talk about enough, from a doctor's standpoint of view, stress is a killer. Yep. Stress will have you with high blood pressure. Stress will have you with migraines. Stress will have your limbs breaking down. Listen, you have to be willing to talk about that. And I want to say to Gina, thank you as a woman for saying that, because I don't think that there are enough women who, especially in our Black communities, who will stand up and say, you know what, I want my man to be able to express himself. Because all y'all who are saying you don't want a man to express yourselves, y'all are really telling your man, I don't want you to deal with stuff the right way. I want you to keep it bottled up. And that's not fair, and that's not right.
I think what they're also saying is, I don't want you to bring your whole self. Like, that's, again, I think we talk about this in such a one-sided view, and regardless of what side you own, it's like, you cannot look at this from one side. This is not just a spiritual problem. It's also a natural problem. It's not also a physical problem. It is a mental problem. It is an emotional problem. Like, it affects everything. The way that you think about anything matters. God is not dead because people, and this is a quote, God is not dead because God is dead. God is dead because of how we live. God is dead because we live, procreate, and govern our lives as if God is dead, as if he is not alive today. So again, it's how much weight you put on a thing. It's, yeah, I'm grieving, but how much do those people really matter? Some of those people were extremely important. Some of those people were crucially important to the core of who Harrison is. Some of those people may have only scratched the surface level, but there's stuff to deal with at every level.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize that. I think when we say mental health, it's not even always the worst of things. Sometimes it's, you had a bad day, but did you ever take the time to release that? Did you ever take time to tell somebody, maybe I'm not okay?
Thank you, Patrina. She said, I'm enjoying y'all. Man, I appreciate that. Listen, we're talking about that. And so, I don't know even where to go, because y'all already heated me up, and I think this is a good conversation. I have two places I want to go, but one, let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about going through, but I want to talk about supporting people who are going through, right? Because not everybody is having heavier issues. Sometimes it's your friends or the people around you who are having those heavy issues. So then what, right? How do you best support people who are going through that mental health journey?
So number one, be okay with not having all the answers. You don't have to have an answer for everything somebody shares with you. You don't have to feel like you have to save them and you have to fix it, because we cannot fix everything. Sometimes you just need to be the ear. Sometimes you just need to be the shoulder. And I think sometimes support, we think that we have to say a whole lot, and we don't always have to say a whole lot. If you don't know what to say, don't make up something to say. If you don't have the answer, don't make up an answer. You might have a resource. You might have a phone number. You might have something where you can direct people, and that's okay for you not to be the one with the answer. I had to learn that even in my marriage, and um, I think like people in relationships, people in friendships, it's important if you consistently are in any type of relationship with somebody who perpetually deals with mental health situations. One of the things that I had asked a few years ago is, how do I support somebody? Like, we have all these resources and we have all these answers for people who are in that space, but we need a support group for the supporters. What do we say? What do we not say? And that's a real question that I ask. Like, what's appropriate to say? What's not appropriate to say? What are words that we should and should not use? What's wrong with you? I was in a course and I was like, don't ask what's wrong with you, but what's troubling you? Because if they already think the worst of themselves, asking what's wrong with you is not positive. So what's troubling you? So sometimes it's just as simple as making sure your vocabulary is correct.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. I swear you're right, because I do think that people, Danny says people feel like they have to walk on eggshells with people who have mental health issues. And sometimes you do, but I think, right, what you're saying is so true. Like, people feel like, well, if my friend's talking to me or if this person's talking to me, I need to have an answer. I need to respond with an answer. And sometimes the answer is just, I'm listening. You know what I'm saying? Or like, or referring the person and saying, hey, maybe you should see a therapist about that. Or, and say it in a way that is in a loving way. Pastor Morrow, I see you got something on your brain.
I think on the other side, and I want to speak to even, I don't know what is up with me. I feel like somebody watching is in this victim space, like, I'm a burden. I don't want to talk to them. And I think, we have to also acknowledge that as the person who is, going through and trying to figure out whatever, like you're going to encounter some struggles in your relationships there, right? Because you are now leaning on people, and people are going to people. Life is going to life. People are going to people. Okay. And sometimes people are going to get it right. But let's be honest, sometimes people are going to get it wrong. And the same grace that we are leaning on for them to extend to us, we as well have to extend grace through our pain to the people who are close to us. Again, who we are expecting a thing from, we have to first be a friend to receive a friend. And I think, again, as hurt as I am in a moment, I can't speak out of turn, because you're not going to forget that. You may forgive it, but you're not going to forget that. So I just want to encourage somebody in whatever space you are as it relates to your stuff. Just be very intentional about how you move with your circles, because it does matter. They do remember. Yes, they will forgive likely, but they do remember. There are some life-altering decisions you're going to make in a hurt space for no other reason than you ain't got no choice. Life is going to keep lifing, and people are going to keep peopling. And it just sounds so simple, but I think in a moment, man, that may be impossible, again, for a person who has circles that are so churchy that we have Bible study and will get caught up somewhere playing, speaking in tongues, and 2.5 hours later, laid out on the floor in the house somewhere, like gone. Okay. It happens. But that to say, how do you deal with this thing without dealing with the thing? I feel like we try to get this discounted religion that says, oh, every day is going to be a good day, but it's not. And when it's not, what do you do? And I feel like that's all we're talking about this month. Like, when it's not okay, when you are legitimately going through a thing that your brain cannot process as a thing, right? Our brain is just surviving. That's all it's doing. Processes pain the same way. It does not differentiate. The same way that you break a leg and have a broken heart, your broken heart feels like a broken leg. but it is undiagnosable. So how do you deal with the thing? Like we have to, we just gotta, and I know again, listen, trying not to go on this tangent, I just feel somebody pulling at my spirit tonight. Just hang on, man. Hang on, hang on. It is going to be okay. That's it.
And we have to be
I
willing
think,
to have the uncomfortable conversations with our friends. So as a supporter, listen, you got to be willing. So the gentleman said sometimes we feel like we got to walk on eggshells. That's true. But we also have to be bold enough when we love and care about somebody to have the hard conversations. And listen, what is it that you need from me to be able to help you? Sometimes people can voice it, sometimes they cannot. But we have to be willing to have the uncomfortable, hard conversations if we're going to be a support. Because sometimes we need to know how to be a support. Because I'm doing this, but if that's not helping you, what is it that I can be doing that's actually going to help you? And I just want to piggyback off of something that Minister Harrison just said. Every day is definitely not going to be a good day. I've been in church all my life, and I ain't never preached that. Listen, I preach Sunday. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. And so, listen, you're not a bad Christian because you had a bad day. You being a Christian and you being righteous qualifies you to go through some affliction. But the promise is, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. But what do you do until you get to the
Preach.
but God? You got to hold on until you get to the but God. And so that's when therapy comes in. Listen, I know it was probably one of your other questions, but I'm going to touch on it real quick.
yeah, please.
How does scripture support this whole mental health thing? Listen, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What does that look like? That's different for everybody. Listen, In Vogue said, free your mind and the rest will follow. If your mind ain't right, sometimes it's medical, sometimes it's genetic. It can be a whole lot of reasons why your mind is off. And so you can't diagnose that yourself. Sometimes you need to go to a doctor. Sometimes you need to go to a therapist because if it's a chemical imbalance, you can pray all you want and God will still perform miracles, but he don't choose to go that route. Everybody in the Bible did not get a miracle. Everybody didn't get a miracle. So sometimes, listen, go to your doctor and figure it out. So many are the afflictions. What do you do until you get to the but God? Deliverance looks a whole lot of different ways. Everybody ain't healed from cancer just because pray for 3 days. Some people got to go through radiation. So everybody's journey is different. And so it is, how do you deal with the afflictions until you get to the point of but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Deliverance look different for everybody. And we got to understand that as we're supporting people too.
I love it. I love it because Winford Washington says there is a movement taking place to get certified mental health coaches in churches through the Light University. It is biblically based and touches on the holistic approach of mental health. And I think that so long, and I want to say this, right? I think not only churches, but some of our seniors, I want to talk, me and my grandmother had a very good conversation about this because so many seniors who grew up, especially in the African American population, grew up and did not, they weren't exposed to psychiatrists or therapists, right? And so what I hear a lot of older folks say is, well, that's, this diagnosis stuff is new, or right, or this trauma stuff is new. We just had to deal with it. Yes, to some degree you're right, but just because you just had to deal with it does not mean that it was the right thing for you or for you to go through, right? And so we have to be careful with that, and I think there's this generational gap, and we have to make sure people understand are educated, right? So the church has sometimes failed because they didn't have the resources to provide good therapeutic mental health coaches or things like that. And so you're right, Black people just had to deal with it. That doesn't mean that was the best way to handle it. It was the way that just it was the default way. That was just what you had to go through. You just had to deal with it. But now that we know better, right? Now that we have researched, now that we are educated about mental health, it now opens the door. And so I do want to also implore our older generation not to stray away from introducing your younger people, right, to good mental health practices. the best way for them to cope is for you to sometimes follow the educational thing. And I know a lot of folks say, oh, education is important. It is. And so if it exists, then you got to make sure that you're taking advantage of it. And that goes for our churches. Our churches have to support good mental health practices, right? It is there for us to take advantage of. So I just wanted to, I just think that's a good point to emphasize. Harrison, I also want to say, to your point, not only for the folks who are watching now, I know a lot of folks come back and watch these encounters later. And so I just want to make sure that if you're watching this at a later time, that you also understand, look, it can be okay. Life, if you have not died, life can still be okay. But you have to seek the help. Danny said it. You have to want it and retrain your mind to be better. You have to want it. You have to desire to want to live that life in a better way and want to move into a more healthier way of living. Yeah. There's a couple places I want to go here, but we're drawing to a close, but I want to ask. Let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo shooting, because people will say that there is mental health, right? And I know we're shifting a little bit, but I just want to talk about it because it's a hot topic for the week. Talk about this Buffalo shooter who went in and sought out a place where African Americans were, and shot up 12 people, killing 10 of those people. And there are people who are pushing back on this and saying this should not be labeled as mental health. I'm just curious as to yours opinion. And those, listen, if you're on with us, we're moving real close to my announcement. But listen, I got this is so important. I love to know what you all who are here with us think about. Can I just pause? I want to highlight what my godfather said. He said, "I did not know how bad I was. My daughter died from sickle cell disease. The loss was so painful, I held it in. But going to therapy helped me and others in my group until we dealt with the loss and guilt of sadness. Now I'm a believer in mental health." Thank you so much for sharing that, Martin, because that is so true. I do want to emphasize that people who go through loss at times do experience mental health issues. And again, they deny it. You deny that I'm going through. You deny. Grief will make you. Part of grief is denial. Part of the grieving period is the process is denial. There's a whole. They talk about denial, and yeah, you got to admit that you need it. So I just wanted to emphasize that. But going back, Buffalo shooting. Do you all feel like there is mental health there for there's a mental health problem with the Buffalo shooter?
So let me say that I also have not kept us up to date. So I'm not gonna have as much valid key information, to be honest. So I'm gonna let y'all take this because I have a lot of thoughts that I'm gonna just let's see how this unfolds.
I'm somewhere in the middle because I don't know this young man's story. I don't know all of his background. I don't know his history. Um, I I like something that Jennifer Holliday said on a social media post that she made, and she said, "Hate is not a mental illness." But I do believe that there could be some stuff that led him to this hate that could have been influenced by a mental health disorder or condition. Because sometimes if there is something going on in our minds, it can lead us to believe things that are not true. We will hold things as true that are not true, and sometimes that can be related to mental health. Um, if you feel separated, you feel alone and isolated, all of that can play into your mental health, which then allows you to be more susceptible to these other influences. And so people will pray on these types of people. And so, hey, we're going to draw you into our group and we're going to teach you this and you'll believe it and it'll sound great. So while the act itself, if it was based on hate, I don't think that, is mental illness, the hate part, but what led to the hate could possibly be. So I'm somewhere in the middle because again, I don't know his whole story.
Yeah. And Danny, I see your point, and I want to say this. Danny says that's for sure a mental health issue. No normal person would move like that. Danny, I want you to type in an answer to this, and I'd love to hear Harrison. I'm gonna bring you in here. We talk, and I brought this up for a point. We talk about when white folks especially move out of racism, and I want to share my thought too. I think that there is a mental health aspect. Jason, I love what you said. I think hate is not part of that mental health process, but there is. I think there's a mental. Mama Annie, in all caps, I say no. It was not mental health. It was a hate crime. I believe it was a hit upbringing of black people through his parents. I believe it was his upbringing of black people through his parents. Listen, I do think there was a mental health piece there. But I want to caveat a little bit with this here, Danny. I'm asking you this too. What about when black folks are doing what they're doing and acting out in crime in our communities? Is that, can we say that when black people are doing what we're doing, we're reacting to our baby mamas and we're jealous of them with another dude? When we are mad that someone stepped on our new shoes, our new Jordans, our new J's? When we are upset because when we're killing our baby because we're throwing a baby out or we're beating a baby to death because we are upset with the mother of that child and we don't empathize because that's not our child. When those moments happen, and those are all true stories, is that also blacks? Is that us in our community? Is that also an issue of mental health that we're not dealing with?
I think it's definitely something we don't talk about enough, for sure. And I'll give you a prime example, man. I've been working at the school, Ingenuity Prep in Southeast DC. Cool place, pre-K through 8 school, but in Southeast DC, right? Affectionately known as the hood of DC. But also, you figure out with children after working with them long enough that most kids are not what most people would call bad kids. Like to be honest, people like there are no bad kids. Now I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is that most kids who are referred to as bad kids typically are not bad kids. Typically, there may be something mentally or psychologically, emotionally that may be imbalanced. There may be some issues going on at home, which is typically, and really what I'm getting at more so, you find out with children after working with them long enough that often what you're experiencing with them is a reflection of what's either happening in their home or somewhere around their normal day-to-day context outside of where you are. Usually what you get meeting a person on an average day, doesn't matter whether you know them or not, what you meet or what you are met with is what is already happening outside of this moment. So I think once you take yourself outside of that, you'll see that there's a larger thing going. So when little Johnny is acting up in his classroom and back in 2000 where Miss Jones, whoever would have raised that paddle, now it's like that's not a thing. Discipline doesn't even look the same because problems aren't the same. A paddle would have worked in the year 2000, maybe. Maybe again, we ain't gonna stick to either side. We just saying maybe. But that to say, I think we are at a point now of understanding that physical discipline does not, first of all, it should never be the first response to an offense. Let's start there. Man, I'm using definite words here like never. Listen, we're going to stand by it. Should not. It should not. There should be some conversation going on about what happened here because I think sometimes, we see these situations blow up, but there could have been something done along the way. And that's what you see with these kids, man. You want to discipline them and you want to say, oh, you're a bad kid until you meet their parents. And then you're like, and now you have a new appreciation for Johnny's behavior because you understand it's spanning from somewhere. So now it's not a problem. Now it's something you should tend to. Now it's a responsibility. And you see how the shift in perspective we talked about already. It's how you view a thing. It's the weight that you put on it. It's the perspective that you have about it. It's not always an issue. What I'm going through is not always a bad thing. It's just grief. It's just what it is. It's grief. It's going to present itself however it presents itself. Now, where my responsibility comes in is when grief shows its face, how does Harrison handle it? I think that's where we come in. I think a lot of people are met in our community with not knowing how to express this thing because we are, back to our earlier point, we're expected to have answers. We're expected to overperform. We're expected to meet the other non-us, with more than, because we've always had to. But this is not one of those things where you can show up and have an answer all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to talk your way and stumble into, maybe that's what's going on. It's just going to happen. But I feel like, again, it's going to start with some conversation. It's going to start with acknowledging everything's like, you're going to have to uncover and you're going to have to unpack. But there's some point, I don't think any of this stuff just happens. None of these big events just happen. You don't get a Donald Trump out of nowhere. That took time. It takes time to get to points like that. Like, things happen along the way, just like you follow down the stairs. There's likely 1 or 2 points where you can stop yourself from falling. But you got to be aware enough to grab a hold to something that's sturdy enough to hold you.
Yeah. I love it. Mary Riley says, when many people grow up with hate, and I'm gonna take it out right here. When many people grow up with hate, what they do as a result is something that they do or think is normal to them. I want to say it one more time, Ms. Riley. I don't think you could have put an exclamation point right there any better. When many people grow up with hate, if they grow up is white people who hate black people who hate on other people in their community. When many people grow up with hate, what they do as a result is something that they do or think is normal to them. That is an exclamation point. Y'all, listen, I'm about to share with you guys a very big announcement. I want to first of all thank Minister Morrow, who is our co-pastor here, our assistant pastor here, Pastor Jay, who has his own ministry, his own church, and we are so grateful for you joining us. I have a super amazing announcement that I want to share with you guys. So go ahead, and if you know people have fallen off, go ahead, tag them, let them know the announcement is finally here. All those people who have thought that I was doing cutting my hair and all that stuff, I'm about to make my announcement. I do want to say, if this is your first time watching us, make sure that you follow us on all of our social media at Encounter the Well, both on Facebook and on Instagram. Follow us at Encounter the Well. If you want to just stay in touch with us, also you can go to our website, www.encounterthewell.org. And I always say it takes money and finances to do the ministry we're trying to do. So please feel free to partner with us in that way. And you can donate by texting to give 84321, any dollar amount like it is in the picture. $100, $50, $5, whatever that is. And please feel free. And again, everybody is thanking you all for the convo. I appreciate that. I want to share a little bit about what's going on with me. So I'm going to do that. Amplify Network, you can go ahead and pull me in. I want to just share this with the people and talk directly to the people. All right, here we go. Listen, I am so honored with the way that my life has unfolded, so honored with the way that things have gone for me throughout the last couple of years, from starting the ministry of the Well to having my own music singles out there. God has allowed me to do so many great things. I've also been able to start my own nonprofit, and I've seen all of those things flourish. And at each step of the way, God has been with me. God has always aligned my journey with whatever his desires were for my life. So many times, there were times when I didn't want to move in the direction which God was pulling me, but God has a way of convincing you otherwise. Come on here, Jonah and the Well. A couple of weeks ago, I was approached by someone who asked me about a position, and I will tell you that my initial response to that ask was no. I sort of walked through what that might look like for me, and I finally decided that the position that that was inquired of me, um, I would do it. Well, just as I thought that I had in my mind what that was going to look like, the person who would have been the person who I would have been working with decided that they would jump ship, not in a bad way, but they were afforded an opportunity to do something even better. And so they did. And so this person then asked me, would you be willing to take my place now that I have moved up to something higher? And initially, again, I said no. Matter of fact, I said hell no. And about an hour later, um, I don't know, something shifted in my heart, and I had said yes. And so I just want to share with you all this evening, those of you all who are part of my family, those of you all who are part of the Well, those of you all who are part of my friendship group. Um, I am not saying goodbye to the Well. The Well is still going to move forward, but I thank God because God puts people in place to help you. And so, right, Minister Morrow will still be here, and all those folks will still be here to help guide us, and I will still be present. Um, but for about a month, I'm going to take a quick little moment to focus on something else. And that something else is I would like to officially and formally announce to you all that I am now running for mayor of the great city of District Heights. As of last Friday, I am a certified candidate to run for. I will be on the ballot for the election of the mayor of the city of District Heights. And so, if you are part of that great city, then I ask that you come out on July 11th and that you vote for myself. I have an amazing team, but I could always use more people on my team. As you know, we have been in the news for different things and for different reasons in the city of District Heights. And there is an incorporated part of District Heights, and there is the outer part of District Heights. The incorporated part is a small part, but we all live in the same area code, and I want to make a difference. I have spent my life as a public servant, a servant leader. I've worked as a community organizer. I have worked as a pastor. I've worked as a youth pastor, a young adult pastor. And I have always been front and center in my community, in the larger community, especially as it relates to Prince George's County. And so I want to make sure that we can make the difference in the place that I live, and that is the city of District Heights. And so our slogan is our people, our city, our time. I will confess to you tonight that it is time for us to make a change. It is time for us to do better. And I believe that we can do that together. So I'm asking everyone to join me on this political journey over the next month up until July 11th. You can help me by supporting, by calling me, by coming out to help us door knock, by coming us out to introduce myself to the city and our squad and our team to the city. And then, of course, it takes financial ability to make sure that we mobilize and gather the things that we need to make that difference. And so also, if you're willing to donate to the campaign, you can cash app that to For Jackson, the dollar sign FORR Jackson. Every penny counts. So again, I'm happy to announce that I am now certified to run in the race for the mayor of the great city of District Heights. Our people, our city, our time. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, guys. You can bring us back in. Listen, I love you all, and I'm grateful for you all. And these next couple of weeks, we have a journey. So make sure you tag everybody, share this message, share this moment with your friends, and let them know. And I want to thank Pastor Jason, who's been there for me from the beginning, and Mr. Morrow, who has also been there for me as we walk on down this journey. and the journey is not stopping. But this also allows Minister Morrow to get his feet more soaking wet in terms of the well and lead the way that I know he's quite capable of leading over the next month and a half. So let's do this. Let's go, y'all. Let's go.
Congratulations
Love
again,
that.
man.
Love that. We're going to make a difference.
Yeah. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. We already have a team that's really ramped up, man. Again, so next week we're talking about toxic sugar honey iced tea, and the conversation will go on. So please make sure you're with us next week. We love y'all, man, and we cannot wait to see you all next week. Again, make sure you support the campaign. Make sure you follow our social media accounts. Vote for Ray, VOTE, the number 4. Ray on both Facebook and Instagram. We are live. We are actually live right now on both Instagram and Facebook. You can follow the campaign and vote for Ray. Listen, we love y'all, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about that. Until next time, everybody, be blessed.